What's up, folks? Perry the Water Legend here once again with my modification or enhancement to my anime journey series, is what I like to call the Anime Blaze, where I take one series of 50 plus episodes once a week and look at one specific arc of said series and chronological order as the series progresses, if the show is structured in an arc-based format. For this week, I am going to be doing this starting with Hunter x Hunter. Now, in this first arc, known as the Hunter Exam arc, we follow the tale of Gon, who is a young boy wanting to go into this thing called the Hunter Exam in order to search for his father. In order to do so, he needs to find the Lord of the Lake, which he does, and goes off to the mainland and to the continents and finds himself in the middle of a Hunter Exam. There across, he finds a couple of characters by the names of Killua, Kurapika, and Leario. Once he encounters this group of people, they start to form their own bonds, their own relationships, and figure out how the dialogue is going to balance off between each of them, despite the fact that they have very different personalities from each other. On top of the fact that they're building the relationships and the chemistry between the cast, we also get to see each of their abilities and figure out what exactly each of these four members can do very, very well. Whether one is a more efficient killer than the other ones, whether someone is a much more stealthy fighter, whether someone is a much more honorable person of noble intentions, and we also get a chance to see each of these characters' respective backgrounds, what their motive is in taking the Hunter Exam, and it gives us a chance to relate to each one of the characters in the main cast. Now, I'm going to be straightforward with you folks. I have been recommended this anime a lot within the past several weeks. It has been constantly encouraged by some of my fans who have wanted me to take a look at the show in terms of being very, very good and just really pushing this one into me. And you know what? I actually was fairly surprised by what I did see. Now, as I looked into this series and I started to look at this Hunter Exam arc, my first impressions were not exactly as friendly, shall we say. Some of it I thought was incredibly slow, and some of it I felt just didn't seem as memorable as certain other segments and didn't really serve a purpose. That was the first take I had on it. But then I took a day and said, you know what? I'm probably looking at this the wrong way. I need to be a little bit more objective about this. And so I take a look at this on a much more objective level and take a day or so and just think about it. And after taking said time to look at said arc and analyze it in a much more objective manner, I've come to the conclusion that, you know what, this is actually a fairly good start. It does everything that a first arc needs to do, or the beginning of a storyline needs to do, in order to get the viewer more invested into what's going to happen next, because this is going to be a long show. The first thing that this show does well right off the bat is that it builds the chemistry between all of the characters to give us a chance to relate to them. We find out more of their backstories, as I mentioned previously, but we also get to see how their dynamics between Gon, Kurapika, Leario, and Killua, how they all kind of conflict with each other, what their backstories are, motivations are, and it's actually interesting. Another thing that this show does very well is the fact that they have the action serve a point. Each one of these segments in an action scene, while they don't happen constantly, whenever they do happen, they do serve a purpose. Even during the Hunter Exam, there's certain segments and certain phases that cannot be predicted, or their lesson for them might not be so apparent, but then once you take a look at them, as well as the examiners who are involved with these tests, you come to realize that, you know what, there actually is a reason for why it's it that they are being put through these trials, as well as not only the main cast of characters, but also everybody else who is participating in the Hunter Exam, and those who are willing to go forward with this are going to discover something new about either themselves or their potential. Another thing I have to commend the show for right off the bat is the art style. The art style really serves the show, and it actually makes it simple, recognizable, and easy to distinguish between each of the characters, and see, like, once you see them, you know instantly who they are and what their story is, and you can recognize them right off the bat. So while it may be a little bit simplistic by some standards and may not have the biggest budget, it actually looks really good, and it serves a point in that it makes everything distinguishable, easy to recognize. Now that I mentioned all the good stuff about this show right off the bat, let me move into the points where I thought to myself originally that were actually bad, or came across as bad. The first thing I need to mention is the music. The music itself, aside from the opening theme, is not exactly the most memorable. There's not that much in terms of the musical score that just comes across as something that, oh wow, this soundtrack is amazing, I need to download this right now, or I need to buy the soundtrack itself in order to support the show. There's really not a theme in this show that comes across, or at least should I say, in this particular arc, that comes across as memorable. And I would say Gon's victory theme, whenever it does happen or whenever he succeeds, The theme it does play for it, and I really, really, really hate using this one or using this particular comment or comparison, because I feel like it's a detriment to the medium itself and to this show as well. But I have to use it in the fact that it sounds kind of like a video game. Sort of like in The Legend of Zelda, whenever Link finds the new item, it's like the whole da-da-da-da sound effect. You know what I'm talking about? It's like that. It's sort of like, you remember it, but at the same time, it's not one of those that you just want to listen to when you're in the car or something. Now, some might argue and say, hey Perry, there's actual musical cues that you're referencing in this review to emphasize the memorability of this set score, and the fact that you even remember those and how it works, doesn't that in itself make it memorable? To which I reply, yes, that objectively is true. The second thing I need to mention is the pacing, and this is the one I had the biggest time with wrestling with, because originally I felt like the pacing was so slow. But again, I said originally. After I took some time to really think about this and give myself a chance to give my thoughts a time to calm down and really give a chance to think objectively about this, I came to the conclusion that the pacing is not as bad as I originally thought it was. Here's the reason why. One particular instance where I felt like it dragged on. However, once I took a more objective stance on it and looked at it critically, I found out that I was actually wrong in terms of why this was so slow, and the fact that there was a reason as to why. It was an action scene involving Gon and Hisoka, and when I found out that it was going too slow, the purpose of why it was so slow was the fact that it was trying to build up tension for the scene and when it actually happened. And I found out this, and I was like, you know what? I can't get mad at a scene, and I can't get mad at the pacing for being slow, because the point of it is to build up tension. And to build up tension, it needs to have a slow burn in order to be really effective. And this point, it does. It really does the tension well. Sort of like in horror movies, how they have a slow start, and it's all for the purpose of building up tension. The same principle applies to Hunter x Hunter, except whereas most horror movies fail in terms of building up tension and giving a successful payoff, the payoff in Hunter x Hunter, whenever it executes this slow tension, actually does have a satisfying payoff, but not only that, it feeds. It is likely going to feed into the rest of the series, at least based on the action that occurs within the end of that particular scene. So much to my surprise, what I originally perceived to be two major criticisms with this show, really when I get down to it on an objective level, only resulted in them being half criticisms, really. And it doesn't make much sense to me criticizing a whole show just because of two small things. So really, they all just kind of go into one criticism. So my bottom line for the Hunter exam arc comes down to this. The pacing, while I admit, is a little bit slow, and only really one instance on an objective level. The musical score, not exactly the most memorable and doesn't really have much of an impact. However, the cast of characters are all likable. Every single bit of the world, you find out more and more about it, and you learn about how the world and society works, which is the purpose of setting the story up for a continuing series. A simplistic art style that's easily recognizable for every character. I have to give Hunter x Hunter the rating of, it's worth watching, but not perfect. So there you go, folks. That is my review of the Hunter exam arc in Hunter x Hunter. I hope you enjoyed this. Comment below and tell me what you think of this particular episode. If you want me to continue this Anime Blaze series, just tell me what you think. And if you have any further suggestions of series I can do in the future once I conclude Hunter x Hunter, please let me know what you tell. I want to hear what you have to say. I understand there's one particular behemoth involving pirates a lot of people might recommend me, but that's going to be a monster all in itself, and I have no intention of taking that one on at this point. And I know some people would, but that's just not on my plate at this moment. It just doesn't seem like it's in the cards right now. So until next time, everybody, I'm Perry the One-Armed Legend. I'll see you later.